If he did ask you to marry him, would you say yes?
No, I don't want to comment about that.
You don't want to comment on that. Can you picture yourself the first lady?
Yes, I will be very traditional, like Jackie Kennedy. I will support him. I will do a lot of social obligations. I will stand by men.
You'd be willing to give up your modeling career?
Yes.
Have you been hurt by the comments that you're with him because he's rich?
You know, the people, they don't know me. People who talk like this, they don't know me.
Well, you don't see many 26-year-old supermodels on the arm of 53-year-old car mechanics.
You know what? You can't sleep or to hug or to talk with beautiful things, with beautiful apartment, beautiful plane, beautiful cars, beautiful houses. You can't do that. You could feel very empty. And if somebody said, you know, you're with a man because it's rich and famous, they don't know me.
Everyone is talking about Donald Trump and what a creep he is and the Epstein files and all that, but nobody is really talking about the other Trump, Melania, and what skeletons she might have rattling around in her closet. And I don't understand why we're not talking about her. I mean, maybe just a little bit, because the Daily Beast released an article where they talked about her being a possible Epstein girl, and Melania's lawyers responded really quickly and aggressively. So the Beast has taken down that article. So I think some people are just scared. But why aren't we all asking, who is this woman, the mysterious Mrs. Trump? And why didn't we all ask these questions before we voted? By the way, just to clarify for my audience, I did not vote for Donald Trump this time around or last time around. Stop coming after me, guys. Do any of you remember the TV series, The Beverly Hillbillies? It was one of my faves when I was growing up. And if you haven't seen it, it's this family from the Ozarks, and they strike it rich like in their own backyard with oil. So they take their whole entire family and they move to Beverly Hills. And it was just so entertaining for me to see that juxtaposition of their Beverly Hills lifestyle. You can take the hillbilly out of the Ozarks, but you can't take the Ozarks out of the hillbilly, right? America elected the Trumps. And it's been the Beverly Hillbillies DC edition since January. You can take the Trumps out of the trash, but you can't take the trash out of the Trumps. I stand by that statement. People do not change because they have money and power. Power is a catalyst. If you're a kind, considerate, thoughtful, regular person, power will give you the ability to be more of that. If you're a hateful creep, we end up with World War II, which is why we cannot separate public life from private life, and why we must do our best to only vote good people into power. And call me crazy, but I personally have higher expectations of leaders than I do regular people, because the regular people aren't going to influence my life that much. I grew up on George Washington refusing to lie about chopping down the cherry tree. Fast forward to 2025, and we have Donald Trump and a first lady with a very questionable past as part of the modeling to Epstein pipeline, and who's known to have been paid for nude photos. Again, call me crazy, but I don't want a first lady who posed for a magazine that posts a decadence issue with forbidden fruit, which includes Vice girls. What the hell is a Vice girl? Somebody tell me what a Vice girl is. Adultery, a Mile High Club, and London's den of debauchery. No thanks. Who is this woman really? And what are they hiding? Let's dive into the mysterious Mrs. Trump. I'm Jenny Gage, and this is Life Take 2.
That's some kinds of you know what I mean. So that's it.
Well, that was weird, right? If you haven't seen that before, that was a modeling job that Melania had where she was pretending to be the first female president of the United States. That was all filmed in Europe to kind of give the impression of the Oval Office and stuff. And I just think it's wild. What are the odds that she would do that and then end up in the White House? There's a lot about Melania Trump that doesn't add up. We see photos of the First Lady with Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. We know she spent time at their parties with Donald. We know she was brought to the U.S. by one of Epstein's friends, Paolo Zampoli, who himself has a really crooked reputation and was Melania's right-hand man for a very long time. But what we don't know is how exactly she fit into the Epstein puzzle. There are really only 4 options. Number 1 was powerless victim. Maybe Melania was actually caught in Epstein's web. She was the runner-up in the Look of the Year contest, which tended to be a pipeline into Epstein. So maybe she was caught in that and couldn't escape. Number 2 is willing collaborator. Maybe she wasn't a victim at all. Maybe she wasn't caught in it. Maybe she was benefiting from the Epstein system. Number 3, clueless innocent. She knew nothing about it at all. She was in proximity, but she was completely out of the loop. And number 4, knowing enabler. She saw things, she heard things, she knew things. She was neither a victim nor a collaborator. She was just going with the flow. Right now, will you just drop 1, 2, 3, or 4 in the comments? Do you think she's a powerless victim, willing collaborator, clueless innocent, knowing enabler? Before we dive into any of this, just based on what you know about the situation. I'll tell you what I think right up front. I think Melania is part of why Trump is fighting so hard to hide the Epstein files. And I'll tell you exactly what role I think she played in just a minute. Again, a few weeks back, the Daily Beast dropped that story about Melania and Epstein, which drew an instant threat from Melania's legal team, causing them to take the article down. The truth is, we don't know if Melania was involved with Epstein. We don't know what she knew. We know very little about this woman who stands loyally beside Donald Trump's side through everything. Who is this woman? Well, here's what we do know. Melania was born in Slovenia and moved to Milan at age 18 to pursue modeling. At 21, she placed runner-up in the infamous Look of the Year modeling contest, a competition notorious for sexualizing young women to industry power players. I do another video on that. I think it's called the Modeling to Epstein Pipeline, which Donald Trump was a big part of. He hosted some of these Look of the Year contests aboard a yacht, the Spirit of New York, and he also hosted people in his own home. So he was a key player in that Look of the Year contest, which Melania was runner-up in that one year. In 1996, at the age of 26, she came to the U.S. on a modeling visa. This detail here, Melania's age, is really important. I need you to keep that in mind. This rules out Melania being a young, barely pubescent teenage girl who was caught in the grasp of these powerful men. She was a grown adult when she came to America. Now, are 26-year-old girls able to completely take care of themselves in the face of powerful men? No, not necessarily. She was still young, but she was not 14. She was 26 when she came over here. Paolo Zampoli, who is a crony of Trump's and Epstein's, is the one who brought her to the United States on that modeling visa. 2 years later, in 1998, Paolo Zampoli, her modeling agent, friend of Donald Trump, introduced her to Trump at a New York party. She was 28, he was 52, and still married legally to Marla Maples. This is a really controversial detail here that, from my research, seems fairly indisputable. There are a lot of people alleging that Epstein introduced Melania to Donald Trump. Zampoli has interviews going way back from the beginning, bragging about how he introduced them. He thought they'd hit it off. He has bragged about introducing them publicly for the whole time. Melania says in her memoir that Zampoli introduced her to Trump. Trump confirms that. I personally don't think that Epstein introduced Melania to Donald Trump. He may have thought about it. They may have run in the same circles, and he may have thought these two would really hit it off. But I feel fairly confident, based on all the evidence, that Paolo Zampoli gets the credit. So we all know that Donald Trump was a playa and that he liked women, some of them on the younger side, like his BFF Jeffrey Epstein. But what do we know about Melania's dating life? Before Trump, Melania's romantic history was really low profile, like it barely existed. She dated a man named Jokek in her hometown. It seems like such a great young adult romance. They spent a summer by the Adriatic Sea together, apparently. Reports from people who knew her during this era describe her as ambitious and fashion-focused. Her modeling years in Europe included dinners with wealthier European types and industry playboys, but she was never linked to anyone romantically as a model in Europe. Now, I'm not going to allege anything there, but I have a couple of friends who were never linked to men, and it's because they were escorts. So I'm just saying that's why my friends didn't have relationships. She could have also been just really focused on her career. She could have been focused on the ladders that she wanted to climb, and she could have been waiting for that perfect golden boy to walk in the door. Again, Zampoli has bragged publicly, I brought her here, I gave her a visa, I gave her a place to stay. I introduced her to everyone in New York, and that introduction changed everything. From everything we know, she did not have a boyfriend in her life, a romantic interest that was helping her along the way in her modeling career and helping her get to America. Whatever that relationship and connection was with Paolo Zampoli, which we don't know. There's a lot there that we don't know. That was her ticket to America. What about the Maxwell and Epstein connections? There's no solid public record placing Melania directly inside Epstein and Maxwell's inner circle, but the proximity was undeniable. Now, this is something that I don't think a lot of people are aware of, that Epstein and Trump were literally neighbors, like close neighbors. They could have borrowed a cup of sugar from each other in like 3 minutes. Epstein's Palm Beach mansion was less than half a mile from Mar-a-Lago. Did you know that? GPS told me that would be a 2-minute drive from Epstein's front porch to Donald Trump's front gate with the golden doorknob at Mar-a-Lago. Despite the way that Trump publicly distanced himself from Epstein, their proximity speaks volumes about how seamlessly their social worlds overlapped. In those circles, casual visits weren't uncommon, and Epstein was notorious for leveraging his parties for networking and recruitment. So when Donald Trump talks about having a girl stolen from the spa at Mar-a-Lago by Jeffrey Epstein, remember, Epstein was a 2-minute drive away, and they were in such close proximity that there were certainly a lot of interactions happening that were never caught on camera, that we don't have records of. Neighbors knocking on each other's door. Was Melania around during this era when Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein were neighbors? She was. She was right there for neighbor Jeffrey. Where exactly was Melania with all of this with neighbor Jeffrey? Was she just completely innocent, like she was out by the pool working on her tan when he stopped by to poach the girl one day? And I don't necessarily know that timestamp overlaps with Melania's presence. Was she just a bystander who saw things happening, a participant, or simply someone who knew exactly what was going on and stayed quiet because speaking up wasn't in her best interest? Those are the only options. What did she know? What did she see? These two questions keep me up at night. I was married to a man who had a total double life. Complete double life. Fake name, affairs, fake identity that he sold to others when he was away from his family. So the people out there meeting him in the real world, they got a story about this realtor named Corey and all this stuff that didn't exist, that never existed. He acted in predatory ways before we met, and believe me, I knew nothing about any of it. I was a complete innocent. He kept his past utterly hidden. Could that have been the case with Melania? I just don't think so, and I'll tell you why. Donald, unlike my ex-husband, lived his life on a very public stage in ways my ex-husband never did, of course. My ex-husband was just a regular old guy trying to hide out and keep everything under wraps. He wasn't bragging to anybody. Melania knew who Trump was, and I think it's highly likely that she and Donald had at least some conversations about his past to some degree or another. In fact, she went to see him one day not long after they met, and a girl that he'd been at a party with had spent the night and was going down the elevator as she was going up, and she kept dating him anyway and eventually married him. She knew who he was. I did not know who my ex-husband was. And we all know how Donald brags about his pervy conquests. We've heard the whole grab him by the pussy tape. I think she at least had to have known the chatter around him. And I believe that they had to have had some conversations or interactions around this stuff. And I don't think he really had a reason to hide things. And then she was there for some parties. We know this. We know that she was there for the modeling pipeline, that she was part of it, that she benefited from it. Standing there smiling with Ghislaine and Jeffrey. My ex-husband was trying to keep up appearances as a conservative church boy, so I was never at a single party. That stuff happened far out of sight. I never knew that it was happening. I didn't know about his double life for 22 years. But again, Melania came into Trump's life knowing who he was. And she was as much a part of this world as Donald was, working with Sam Poley and other friends of Jeffrey. She was part of this dark web on her own, independent of Trump. She knew things and saw things from the inside. In fact, I feel like she may have known details that even Donald didn't, because she was just one of the girls, and she may have heard firsthand accounts from the girl grapevine. Whispered conversations in a dressing room, complaints from friends after runway shows. What, if anything, has Melania said about any of this? Has she made any public statements? Has she addressed this directly in her own words? On the Stormy Daniels affair, Melania told ABC News, "It is not a concern and focus of mine. I'm a mother and a first lady, and I have much more important things to think about and to do." When asked if she loved her husband, she replied, "Yes, we are fine. Yes." And this is the big one. "I'm not a victim. I'm very strong, and I know what my priorities are." And that right there, that is the quote that is really all that I need to know about where Melania fits into this puzzle. Let me say it again. I'm not a victim. I'm very strong, and I know what my priorities are. I personally feel like there's no way Melania doesn't know any of Trump's dirty secrets, or Epstein's, or Maxwell's, which for me rules out powerless victim and clueless innocent, number 1 and 3, and means the only 2 options left for her are willing collaborator or knowing enabler. And that is at the very heart of my anger around Melania Trump. It isn't just about what Melania did, it's about what she knew and chose not to do. She climbed ladders using men, Zampoli and Trump. She made money modeling, landed the role of First Lady, and benefited from proximity to immense wealth and power. There's no way she didn't hear things, see things, and know things, and I think she stayed silent because she was willing to step on the backs of young victims to climb her way to the top, because that was her priority. Have you heard the phrase shield maidens? The term shield maiden comes from Viking legend, women warriors who fought beside men in battle carrying shields into war. Today it's used as a dark metaphor, a woman who shields powerful men from accountability, protecting the patriarchy, even when it destroys other women. I think quite simply that Melania acted and continues to act as a shield maiden, enabling men to harm others. Many of us have at one time or another been enablers, shield maidens in some capacity. And the irony is, if we all said no, then the power system that we are shielding to our advantage, but mostly to their advantage, would crumble. All you have to do is say no and it collapses. The whole thing would crumble. The web of evil spun by men like Jeffrey Epstein and other systems that harm and oppress. Shield maidens aren't protecting anything but the status and benefits they personally get from the men in power. And they do so without regard to the harm of others. And I just wonder what if. Because again, I'm kind of a dreamer. What if they shielded the people who actually needed to be protected behind that shield of theirs? What would actually happen if just one woman stood up and shielded the right person and not the creeps? Well, let me tell you about a few women who refused to stay silent. Rosa Parks didn't stay silent. In 1955 in Montgomery, Alabama, she refused to give up her bus seat to a white passenger. It wasn't because she was tired from work, it was because she was tired of this system. Her arrest ignited the Montgomery bus boycott, a movement that became a cornerstone of the civil rights struggle. Parks paid for her defiance, losing her job, facing threats, living much of her later life in financial hardship, which I don't think a lot of people realize about Rosa Parks, that her standing up destroyed her future. But she never wavered. She chose justice over personal comfort, knowing that one act of courage can inspire millions. Malala Yousafzai was just 15 years old when the Taliban boarded her school bus in Pakistan and shot her in the head for daring to speak about girls' rights to an education. She survived, and instead of retreating into safety, she became the youngest ever Nobel Peace Prize laureate. Even now, she still faces death threats constantly, but she continues to speak for girls who can't speak for themselves. She is shielding the right people. Anita Hill sat before an all-male Senate Judiciary Committee in 1994 and testified about sexual harassment she endured from Clarence Thomas, a creep nominated to the U.S. Supreme Court. She was ridiculed, smeared, and disbelieved, but her testimony sparked a national conversation about workplace harassment and inspired countless women, like myself included, to tell their own stories. She knew the personal cost, and she did it anyway. Tarana Burke, my personal hero, who sparked everything that I do online, shared her own story of sexual violence and coined the phrase Me Too, years before it became a global movement. When her hashtag went viral, she faced public scrutiny and trolling, but she never backed down. Her work gave survivors a shared language, and that language became a rallying cry. And Sylvia Rivera, a trailblazing Latina trans activist, fought tirelessly for queer youth and trans rights in the face of constant rejection, even from within the LGBTQ community. She co-founded the Street Transvestite Action Revolutionaries to help homeless queer youth, putting her own survival on the line to make sure others had a place to belong. These women didn't enable the systems that oppressed them, they disrupted them. They refused to trade integrity for status, safety, or a paycheck. And again, call me crazy, but this is the type of story that I would like behind the First Lady of the United fucking States of America. Sorry, grandmas. That's the only time I'm going to say fuck in this video, I think. Let's play one of my favorite games that my teenagers hate. I call it Imagine If. Imagine a world where Melania had stood up to the evil men around her, where she told the truth about what she knew, where she outed the predators and helped even one young woman escape the Epstein circle. Instead, if she did know anything, she has clearly chosen silence. Epstein's story is not just a story of predators. It is a story of enablers, a story of complicity, of people willing to harm young women for fun, and of those who weren't even in on the fun. And of course, you know I'm saying that in air quotes because it is despicable, staying silent to protect themselves and their status. While we may never know Melania's exact role, I feel like I know enough. I know that even today, she isn't speaking up and speaking out. Imagine if the name Melania Naus was famous not as a former model and first lady, but as the woman who helped blow the Epstein ring wide open. If she had helped even one woman, it could have changed that one life forever. So in conclusion, I do believe that Melania had to have known something, that she was an enabler at the least. And I have a little call to action for all of us. Here's your homework. Super simple. Don't be a shield maiden. It's gross. And we all rise together or not at all. A man is not a plan. Get a job, girl, so you don't have to climb the ladder of men. And above all, don't be an enabler. Rise up. Turn over the patriarchy. Do you hear the women sing? Be the disruptor like Rosa, Malala, Anita, Tarana, and Sylvia. Melania Trump could have been known worldwide as the woman who did the right thing. Instead, she's a gold digger who turned a blind eye to harm because she was hungry for power and money. And Melania, just like us, is writing the future that our children's children will inherit. We are writing their future right now, and we can and must do better. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next video.